Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial number 48 in a series of video tutorials for Java programming. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload on my channel. So first of all, I want to apologize about the very long hash test between tutorial number 47 and tutorial number 48. So I faced some issues like my mic broke, and after that I faced some personal issues. So I don't want to talk about that in this tutorial. So anyway, so let us get started. So let's get started with tutorial number 48. So in this tutorial I want to talk about annotations. All right, so we are just going to resume from where we left in the previous tutorial. So first of all, we are going to talk about marker annotations. So this marker annotation, this is a special kind of annotation which is defined in the Java programming language. First of all, it has no members. Okay, so if you look at the third point, okay, so this my marker annotation, this is a kind of marker annotation only. It has no members defined in it. Okay, and this marker annotation, it is going to mark a declaration. Okay, so declaration means declaration of a class, interface, method, etc. Okay, so we'll be looking into this in more detail when we use the IDE. But these are the 2-3 things which you need to remember about the marker annotations. First of all, it doesn't have any member. All right, then after that it is going to mark a declaration. So this is a marker annotation. Then after that, there is another special kind of annotation which we are going to talk about, and that is known as single member annotation. Okay, so if we talk about single member annotation, then it is containing one member, exactly one member. Okay, so if it contains more than one member, then it is not a single member. Obviously, as the name itself suggests, single member means it is going to contain exactly one member. All right, so and the name of that particular member, it is usually named as value. Like here I have defined single member annotation, which is named as single annotation, and here I have defined a member int value. All right, so usually in single member annotation, the name of the member, it is used as value, it is named as value. All right, and whenever we are going to use this in a particular before a method or something, we can use it in this manner, @single annotation, and after that we can simply write 100 here. Now one thing you need to remember here is that if you don't name the member as value, this particular statement, it is not going to work. Okay, if you name the member as anything else apart from value, then here you need to write @single annotation, then bracket that particular name, okay, member name equals 100. So we will be exploring all those things when we use the IDE. All right, for now it is just enough to remember that single member annotation, they are going to contain a single member, okay, or a one member, just exactly one member. Okay, and this is how we are going to use it. Okay, so then after that, these are the built-in annotations. Okay, so we have the retention, we have documented, target, inherited, override, deprecated, suppress warnings. So these are all built-in annotations which are already defined by the Java itself. Okay, it is already defined in the Java programming language. Okay, so let's read read these annotations one by one. So first of all, I am going to talk about retention. Okay, so retention, this annotation we have seen numerous times already. Okay, if I talk about this particular line, for example, retention policy dot runtime. Okay, so this is exactly what this particular annotation is used for. It is always used only on annotation. Okay, used means I'm talking about this usage, because okay, this particular annotation, it is already defined in the Java programming language. So I'm going to use it in front of an interface. Okay, obviously in front of an annotation. Okay, interface means I'm talking about annotation interface. Okay, so it is used only on annotation, and it is going to specify retention policy. Okay, and we have studied about retention policy already, so I don't need to explain it in much detail here. So So it is going to be like retention policy dot runtime, retention policy dot yeah, we have class. Okay, so these are certain retention policies which we studied already. Okay, then after that we have documented. So documented, it is a marker annotation, okay, which you have already studied what marker annotation is. Okay, it is not going to contain any members. Marker annotation, they don't contain any members, but they are simply used to mark a particular interface or a class, okay, or a method, and it is going to tell the tool that the annotation is to be documented. Okay, so that is what this documentation annotation is used for. So whenever this documented, it is used in front of a method or in front of something. Okay, so it is going to tell that that particular class or that particular method, it is going to be documented. All right, then after that we have target. So target, it is going to specify the type of declaration. Okay, so we have certain target types which we'll be studying in the next slide. Okay, so so basically what is the use of this particular annotation is, it is going to specify whether the annotation, it is going to target a particular constructor, or whether it is going to target a class, interface, etc. Okay, and it is also going to, in this particular annotation, it is also an annotation to another annotation. Okay, and it is going to take one argument which is constant of element type, and that is what we are going to discuss in the next slide. So these are the target constants. Okay, so first of all we have the annotation type. Annotation type means I am talking about another annotation. Okay, so if I talk about annotation type, then if I use the target constant annotation type, then that means it is targeting another annotation. And otherwise, if I use constructor, then it is targeting another constructor. Same if applies for field. If I'm talking about field, then the target is field. Okay, local, then variable, local underscore variable, then it is going to target a local variable. Okay, same applies for method, package, parameter. And if I'm talking about the target constant type, then it refers to class, interface, or enum. Okay, so these things we'll be discussing in more detail when I use the IDE. All right, so right now you just need to remember that these are the different target constants which are there in the Java programming language. Okay, so altogether there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. There are 8 target constants in the Java programming language. Then after that we have @inherited. Okay, @inherited means it is a marker annotation. Okay, and it is going to affect only annotation which is used in class declaration. Okay, it is only used in class declaration. Okay, and what is the meaning of this particular annotation is that let us say, like for example, let us assume that there is a I am defining a class. Okay, and I am marking that particular class as @inherited. Okay, I am defining this particular let us say annotation in front of that particular class. Okay, and if another class is going to inherit the first class which I declared, okay, then if I use this particular annotation in the base class, then the subclass, it is going to inherit all the annotations, okay, whichsoever are declared in the superclass. Okay, so this thing will be more clear when I use the IDE. So right now @inherited, it is just going to ensure that the subclass, it is going to inherit the annotations which are defined in front of a superclass. Okay, so if there are certain annotations which are defined in superclass, and if I use this @inherited, okay, then subclass is also going to inherit all the annotations which are defined in the superclass. Okay, then @override. Now this particular annotation, we have used it numerous times. Okay, we have seen it numerous times, I should say. Okay, so this particular annotation, it is a marker annotation, and you should remember this particular annotation, it should be used only with methods. Okay, so that is the purpose of this target constants and all, and this target annotation. So we'll be looking into this more detail in later on. All right, So I'll be showing you, I'll be taking you to the source code of these particular annotations, and then we'll be looking into more detail that whether inherited is valid in front of a method, or whether this override it is valid in front of a class or something like that. Okay, and this override it is always valid if you are declaring it in front of a method. Okay, so it is a marker annotation which is always used only on methods. And but one thing you need to remember is that if you're using this particular annotation in front of a method, then that particular method it has to override a method from superclass. Okay, it cannot be any method, whatsoever method you like. Okay, it has to definitely override a method which is present in the superclass. Okay, so these are the certain rules which you need to keep in mind. So then after that we have deprecated. Okay, so deprecated means marker annotation. And if I define this deprecated in front of a, let us say, constructor, or in front of a method, then that means that particular constructor or that particular method it has now become obsolete. Okay, obsolete means it is no longer supported, or it is no longer in use. Okay, even though you can call that particular constructor, or you can call that particular method, the Java compiler it is going to give you a warning. Okay, but it is not going to give you any kind of errors or something. Okay, because that is not the purpose of this particular annotation. But Java it is going to throw a warning. Okay, it is going to warn you that this is obsolete, or this has been marked as deprecated. So try to use something else. All right, then after that we have suppress warnings. Okay, so suppress warning means sometimes what happens is Java compiler it is going to throw certain warnings. Okay, like and we want to suppress that particular warning. We don't want that warning to appear. Okay, so in that case we are going to use @suppress warning. So it is going to suppress the warning which is thrown by the Java compiler. Okay, so then after that inside the bracket parenthesis we are going to write which warning we want to suppress. Okay, so all these things may look a little confusing here, but since I'm not using the IDE, okay, so it is obviously going to look a little confusing. But then after that there are certain restrictions, okay, which apply to these annotations which I have defined here. Okay, if I talk about the constructor, if I talk about the concept of annotation, then annotation it cannot inherit another annotation. Now this particular first point I have already explained you a lot of times. Okay, annotation it cannot at all inherit another annotation. Okay, an interface can inherit or extend another interface, a class can inherit or extend another class. Okay, a class can implement another interface. Okay, even an enum can implement an interface, but an enum cannot extend a class, remember. Okay, so but annotation cannot inherit another annotation. So this is the first restriction. Okay, second restriction is the method cannot have parameters. Okay, so I'm talking about these methods, like okay, I'm talking about the members. Okay, like for example I'm talking about this int value. Okay, I'm talking about int value, and okay, I'm talking about int value. I'm talking about the members which are defined in this particular annotation. Okay, so this particular method it cannot have a parameter. Okay, so that particular method it cannot accept a parameter. So whenever I'm going to use the IDE, I'm going to test out what is going to happen if you try to add a parameter, whether the compiler is going to give a warning, or whether it is going to throw an error, or what exactly is going to happen. Okay, so we'll be looking into all those things when I use the IDE. Okay, so don't miss out that particular tutorial whenever I'll be using the IDE, because it will be very interesting. Then after that, return type must be primitive. Okay, so I'm talking about the return type of the method which is defined in the annotation. Okay, like for example I was talking about that int value, okay, just a couple of minutes ago. Okay, so what was the return type of that particular method? Return type was int. Okay, int, integer. Okay, so this restriction is saying that the return type it has to be int. Okay, it can be string. Okay, it can be class. Okay, now I don't get confused. I'm talking about class. Okay, class is a with a capital C. This is a class which is defined in the java.lang package. Okay, if you remember right, please remember. Okay, that Java is case sensitive. I have stressed it enough, in the previous tutorials, and I'm stressing it once again here. This particular class, it is a class which is defined in the Java programming language. Okay, then after that enum type also, you can return. Okay, it can be the return type of the particular method defined in annotation. It can be another annotation also. Okay, and array of preceding types. Okay, you can have array also. So these are the certain restrictions. You cannot have anything apart from these. All right, then after that, annotation can be generic. Okay, annotations cannot be generic. Okay, so that means we will talk about the concept of generics very soon. Okay, probably in the next tutorial itself. So when we study the concept of generics, okay, this particular line will be clear to you. All right, so let us not go into much of depth right here. I will be discussing this after we study the generics. Okay, so let just keep this thing in mind. I will also keep this thing in mind to discuss this particular point after we have studied the concept of generics, because right now there is no point in discussing this because you don't know what is the concept of generics. Okay, so I cannot explain this one right now. Methods cannot throw an exception. Now this particular point, okay, I was just talking about that int value method here. Okay, so this particular method or any kind of method which is defined in a single member annotation, okay, then that particular single member, now I'm not talking about single member annotation, I'm talking about the method which is defined in annotation. Okay, so let us say here it is int value. Okay, let us say I have defined another method, like let us say string something name, let us say. Okay, so then that particular method, neither this method nor that particular string name method, it can throw an exception. Okay, because that is the rule which is defined in the annotation. Okay, so these are the certain restrictions, okay, which we need to follow whenever we are defining annotation or whenever we are defining a method or a return type in annotation. Okay, so I still think that there is something which I'm missing in the third point. Okay, so I said that this class, I said this class, right? So it is a class which is defined in the Java programming language. So I think you can even have the return type, like let us say you're defining a new class yourself. Okay, like I defined a class named tutorial. If you remember, whenever I'm using the IDE, I am naming the class as tutorial, right? So I think you can even have the return type as tutorial also. I think it can have custom data type also, I think, but we need to check it. We'll be checking all those things when we use the IDE. All right, but I'm sure that you can have the return type as tutorial. That means I'm talking about your own custom data type, own custom classes. Okay, that also you can pass as the return type, I think. So but this thing will be verifying when I use the IDE. All right, so that's all I'm going to talk about in this particular tutorial. Okay, so from now onwards I will try to be more regular. So sorry about the very long hiatus. So if you have any kind of questions, then don't forget to post in the comment section below. And if you liked this particular tutorial, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And yeah, I will see you in the next tutorial. So till then, bye.